All right, the Reds, it's the preview show and we're previewing Liverpool v Porto, the quarter-final of the Champions League. I've got Dan Austin and I've got Ian Ryan with me to do that. It's a weird one, this, I think, because although it's the quarter-final of the Champions League, which is a huge game, it kind of doesn't feel that way because we're all having a heart attack about the challenge for the Premier League title. I don't like the phrase free it, Ian, because it's the Champions League and we love the Champions League and we're rightly proud of Liverpool's record in the Champions League. But I understand as well why that phrase is sort of being bandied around. It's not a free it, we want to win it. But it kind of feels like the pressure, the intensity of Anfield or even away grounds at the moment won't quite be there, because although we want to win it, although number 6 would be absolutely lovely and both would be amazing, I think there's a definite order of things for most Liverpool fans, and that's Premier League, then European Cup.
I think you're right. I think for fans, the Premier League's taken priority, hasn't it? So for me personally, this is welcome relief. This is nice to go into a game where, yes, you want to win. There's pressure to go and win, but it's not quite like the Premier League where every game's so fucking intense. I mean, it is heart attack gear in it. Every single match is heart attack gear. So this for me it's a nice one to have. You
might get a fucking Anfield app defibrillator, to be honest, mate.
Fucking hook me up, son, hook me up. I mean, as I say, yeah, an important football match, and the players, the manager, they'll want to do well because the memories will still be strong from last season. And you know, we had a great time, didn't we? Fans, players alike. It was an unbelievable journey to get to the final, and we kind of fall short at the end. So absolutely desperate to go and kind of put a show on tomorrow. But it is nice just to have a bit of a break from the league, because it's felt so intense that this comes at the right time for me. And I think, you know, you've got to respect Porto. You know, that game last year will live in the memory where we go to their place and absolutely take them to the cleaners. And everything we kind of hit goes in that night. It's one of those kind of perfect...
a couple of chances.
Yeah, they do. It's one of those perfect storms, isn't it, where it just all fell. And that goal from Mo Salah still kind of lives in the memory where he kind of dinks it over his head and kind of rolls it in. It's one of my favourite goals from last year. But still a big football match. I mean, to be in this position now, it's testament to the side, testament to the manager, because we're right in the thick of it, and that's where you want to be every single season.
I have to say as well, Dan, that I quite like the sort of, not from a Liverpool fan perspective, because I want us to win, obviously, but I quite like the noises that are coming out of Porto, in that they got us and were like, get in, revenge, do you know what I mean? And I like that it's a working class area, it's that type of vibe, and so they're similar in that respect to the way we are about our footy team a little bit. So, you know, there's an interview today with Pep Linders, and he obviously worked there, and he was saying they were made up together because they think, okay, we can put that 5-0 right. I mean, that might be a little bit optimistic, and the bookies certainly don't think so, because Porto are 10-1 to win at Anfield tomorrow. But nevertheless, and Ian touched on it, we can all go on about that 5-0, but equally, they're in the quarterfinals. They've beat Roma to get here. They can't be mugs, is my point, really.
No, and a proud European club with a load of history as well. It might be forgotten about in recent times because they haven't been in the proper latter stages of the European Cup ever since they won it in 2004, and ever since then, their best players have kind of been picked off by teams in Spain or in England or in Germany or whatever, but they always bring brilliant ones through, no matter what, and they bring so many through and have so many picked off by different teams that every time you play them, it's a different side. So the 11 that they're going to put out at Anfield tomorrow will be vastly different to the one that they put out last year, and you would assume that it's better because they're at a further stage in the Champions League. They're doing better in the league this season as well. It's by no means going to be anything like what it was last year. Liverpool are obviously still a better team than them, play in a more intense league where the games are more challenging on a regular basis, should be in a better rhythm than them, you would think. But it's going to be an awful lot tougher. And as well, I think the fact that we've got them at home makes it a bit easy for them, because in the first leg last season, they have to come out and play, because if they're going to win the tie, they probably have to win the first leg. So they have to go a bit more attacking in the first place. Then once the 1 down, 2 down, they have to keep looking to find a goal, because otherwise it's finished. They know it's very unlikely they're going to win at Anfield. This time, they could take a 1-0 defeat and think, you know what, we're all right with that because we'll get them back to ours and try and do something there, or 3-1 or something. I'm sure they'd think, well, it's not ideal by any stretch, but, we've got a goal, we've played all right, we're confident at home, and then they can play the home game with a bit more context around it, whereas last year they were just sort of guessing based on what Liverpool were doing, and then suddenly, by the time they were trying to make the chances that you were talking about, Ian, they were 5-0 down and had no chance in the second leg. But even the second leg, you know, Liverpool didn't take it particularly seriously. I don't think they weren't looking to make that many chances. It was a bit like a training game. But Porto did all right. I remember them hitting a post or hitting a bar in the second half, I think. So they were much improved in that game as well. They've got a good manager. They've been playing really well this season. It'll be a much tougher game than what we had. But, you know, if you take Liverpool's 11 and Porto's 11, I think you're picking all of the Liverpool players for your team. And it should still be a comfortable enough win.
Yeah, I mean, the top Group D, Ian, with Schalke, Galatasaray and Lokomotiv Moscow in their group. They were unbeaten in the group. As I mentioned earlier, they beat Roma. So, you know, again, suggests sort of no mugs on that. And they've won 6, drawn 1 and lost 1 in the Champions League this season. And yeah, as Dan mentioned, doing pretty well in the league as well, right at the top there.
Yeah, so second on goal difference, I think, aren't they?
Yeah. So, you know, again, I mean, the record as well, we played them 6 times, won 3, drawn 3 in the history of the two clubs as well. So everything does sort of point to that. It is the draw you wanted. We all said that, didn't we, before it came around. But, you know, the dynamic is different, like Dan mentioned as well. And you need a performance tomorrow, don't you, just to be sure, really, because we might have done them 5-0 out there last time, but traditionally they're good at home.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the message from the manager will be, I'm sure, to try and get this done in one time. And that's not to sound disrespectful, because I take on board all the things Dan said there. You know, it probably won't be as easy as last season. You know, there'll be a bit of there'll be some pride about this team as well. You know, they've suffered a real hammering, a bit of a humiliation, if we're all honest, in Europe last year. Yes, they come to Anfield and get the 0-0, but the game's well and truly done by then in the first leg. So they'll feel like they need to kind of put a bit of a show on, so it's not quite the humiliation of last year. But Dan's right, you know, kind of player for player, this Liverpool team's, you know, far better than Porto. So you can only really imagine one winner, I suppose, and I think a lot of this will come down to getting the mentality right on the night. You know, no complacency. There's no reason why Liverpool should be complacent, but I think you've seen maybe over a couple of recent league games, maybe we started a little bit slower than maybe we'd liked, and you see it against Southampton where the first 20, half an hour, it's not great. And you could argue maybe Liverpool are letting teams blow themselves out, and that happens against Southampton. You know, we did let them blow themselves out, but I'd like to maybe start a little bit quicker, and I think the manager will have one eye on. It'll be nice to be able to do a little bit of rotation second leg, not wholesale, but maybe if you can suddenly take 3 or 4 out for that second leg, it certainly helps us going into that kind of, you know, the league campaign.
We did that last time, didn't we? I mean, he obviously had 5-0 then, but, you know, Salah didn't play and Van Dijk didn't play. I mean, Porto, we sort of, I feel like we bigged them up a little bit there. The other side of the coin is that in terms of coming to England and in terms generally of playing away in the Champions League, it's not great. They haven't won in 18 previous attempts on English soil. They haven't scored in the last 6, and they also haven't won any of the last 12 away in the Champions League, dating back to 2004. Klopp, meanwhile, has a perfect record in 2-legged ties since he's been at Liverpool. So what might Porto do? Well, we have teamed up with StatsBomb now. As you might have seen, Neil's been doing the stats show as well. If you haven't watched that, give that a watch. It's there on the YouTube channel. So using StatsBomb, using his own knowledge, using the fact that he spoke to some Porto fans as well over the last week or so, here's Neil on how Porto might set up at Anfield tomorrow night.
Okay, here is our preview of Porto, and it's our preview of Porto with some StatsBomb involvement in this. Thank you very much to James York, as ever, being the absolute business in terms of guidance, and just pulled a few interesting things out for you. The first thing I'd say is that this is a different Porto to last season. They are significantly different. I've got the counters lined up, broadly speaking, in terms of what you can expect. We'll go on to talk about that in a minute. One of the key things about Porto this season, both domestically and in Europe, has been their success from set pieces. They've been really innovative with set pieces, which does worry you when we talk about Liverpool's high line. They'll have done some work on that, but then let's be clear, Liverpool will know everything I'm talking about far better than I do, and they'll be able to anticipate this. But if you look at this slide, you'll be able to see the goals they've scored from indirect free kicks in the league, and you can see that they're on 5, much greater than the expected goals of 2.39, and you can see that they're very much dotted around the edge of that 6-yard box, but they tend to work those opportunities rather than just put the ball straight in. Corners as well, if you have a little look, that should be popping up now. They've scored 9 goals from corners across the course course of the season in the league. That's a pretty decent number, and they will be dangerous from that. And it's the same in the Champions League. Moving on to the third slide, don't worry too much about what it means, just the other line, the double line around are the ones with the goals. And you can see there they've got 4 goals from an expected goals of 2.47. That means they've been good. It might mean that they might return to the way things have been. It might mean that, for instance, they could put a lot of corners in across the 2 legs against Liverpool and get no joy. And then afterwards we say, well, maybe they've gone back to average. What I think, though, is I think this is something that Porto are working on and something that they're thinking about, and it's something Liverpool are going to have to think about. And so as part of that, if you look at our 4th slide, you can see the attacking corners from that left-hand side. And you can see that, yes, they take a few of them short, but there's a really strong group in there around the near post area on the edge of the 6-yard box. That's where they're looking to take those corners, and they're the areas that they are looking to target. Yep, the red dots are the ones they've won, the blue ones are the ones that the opponents have headed away. But you can see there that that's where they're looking to do their business, and that's what they're about. They play this sort of shape. This is what they tend to do. And they've been quite passive in the Champions League. You can have a little look there and see that there's not much pressure in the middle of the pitch. You'd expect much more than that. A couple of blocks of red around the place, but it's mostly those blue boxes and dark black boxes in the middle there that says they're significantly less than average in terms of how much they pressure. That might be to do with the group. They had Schalke and Lokomotiv Moscow, and they might have thought they don't need to get at those sides. But it may well be that they're the sort of side who don't pressure anywhere near as aggressively. And that's sort of borne out, really, within the league. Yes, they pressure more in the league, but not quite as much as you expect Liverpool to, or Manchester City to, in a week-in, week-out sort of basis, whereas Porto are very dominant in the Portuguese league. The last thing I want you to look at is this. It's the pass zones from the game against Roma, away from home. And that sort of represents how I've set this up to some degree, albeit a little bit deeper. And that brings us to the side that we can expect them to play. You can see that the pass map is similar to the shape that we've got here. And they've got a few suspensions, though, from the last game. So it won't be those same players as you can see on that pass map there. It will be a little bit different. And if we look over to the board here while I pick my book up, as I've written this stuff down phonetically to hopefully ensure that I can pronounce things correctly, there's Casillas in goal. We know him and we know what he's about. It would normally be Militao who would be on the right-hand side, right back, but he's likely to play centre-back because there's a suspension there. Felipe will play next to him. Telas is the one they want to be able to play at left back, but he's likely to be injured, so it will be Manafleu. I think I've got that one right. Then you've got Pereira and Oliver. I can do Oliver, it'll probably Oliver, but I can do that one in the middle of the park there for those two. Ottavino will be over on the right-hand side. Brahimi, who we saw last season play for them, will be there. I would think Tiquinho and Menega will be the front two. They might go with one more midfielder. I can't quite be 100% on that. There's been a bit of chopping and changing through the Champions League campaign for them. So they might go with one more midfielder when they come to Anfield. But I'd expect maybe this with Tiquinho sort of dropping in more and more and looking to do that leg work. They're obviously missing a couple. They're missing Herrera in the middle of the park, who's important to them, and he's unavailable due to suspension. So I think that if he was there, maybe they'd do it a little bit differently, but that's what I would expect. This to be the shape, this to be the Porto side. For Porto to be looking to target from set pieces, looking to turn Liverpool around. They've got a fair bit of pace, looking to win fouls and start from there and start some indirect free kicks and see if they can do the business against the Reds. Liverpool should have too much for them. We know that. We know we can say that, but it's still a Champions League quarter-final. I suspect that Jurgen Klopp will be happy with any win to nil. He will back Liverpool to score on any ground, any win to nil, and I think Jurgen Klopp will think that Liverpool have took one step towards making a second successive Champions League semi-final.
Nice one to Neil there. Let's talk about the Reds then. Let's talk about the mentality monsters, as Jurgen Klopp called them. So it's 5 wins on the spin now. Burnley, Bayern Munich, Fulham, Spurs and Southampton. You mentioned before it's been a little bit nervy at times, but nevertheless, they're getting the job done. And Southampton still feels huge. I mean, it was only the other day, so it's fine to still talk about it. Obviously, huge goal for Mo. You'd like to think that's that off his back now, and we'll see the Mo Salah of old. Also, as well, the goals from midfield, Keita and Henderson, much needed, and quite funny as well, because everyone was harping on about there not being enough goals from midfield. There you go, here's a couple. But Keita's first one for a year as well. So I guess my big question then is, what's your midfield for this game? Having seen what you've seen happen at Southampton, Milner and Henderson come on, make a huge impact. Wijnaldum looked a bit goosed and didn't influence it at all.
No, I think, I mean, Wijnaldum looks like a fella who's just given everything for the first 7 months of the season, and I think it's fair to say I'd be leaving him out of this one. Maybe Chelsea as well on Sunday, if we can afford to do that. I think Milner will slot in at left back. I certainly hope so anyway. Otherwise, it means the other fucking lunatic's got to start. Which
Moreno's already played 4 all season.
I don't really want to see that. So Milner at left back, and then I think you'd go Fabinho. I think you go Henderson, and I'd be happy for Keita to kind of go again. To be honest, I think you see almost that kind of release when the goal goes in, because I think he is having a tough, like them all really, a tough 20 minutes, half an hour. That midfield didn't really work against Southampton, but I think there has been other games where it has worked quite well and they've complemented each other quite well, but it didn't on Friday. And I think in Keita's case, you see lads running off the back of him a little bit too easy. I think that's something he'll have to work on, but no doubt he'll get there. But I think with the ball, he does offer you something. I think there's times where maybe he gets caught a little bit in possession, and that's probably because he's just not used to the pace of it. You know, some big grok comes in wellies.
It must be hard just to be in and out as well.
Exactly, yeah. And he's had injuries, so I think you've got to say it's been stop-start for him. That can't be easy, getting your kind of rhythm and stuff. I think Fabinho found it a little bit easier when Henderson came on. I think it's fair to say. Because all of a sudden he had a little bit of help, because I think Gini really did struggle on Friday night for the reasons we've mentioned. So they'd be my 3, Robbo. I'd go Henderson, I'd go Fabinho, and I'd go Keita. And I think for Keita's point of view, it'd be nice to get another game on the bounce. And I think the pressure's off now because he's got that goal. And Porto feels like a nice opponent for him as well, where he maybe gets a little bit more space and maybe doesn't have quite as much to do defensively. So they'd be the 3 I'd go with.
Any argument with that, Dan?
I would change it a little bit. Sort of going off what I think Porto will do as well. So they're going to be missing Hector Herrera, who's their best midfielder, possibly their best player in total. And he's a really good all-rounder, sort of keeps them moving. He's very strong physically. The players that they replace him with, I think Oliver Torres will probably play, and he's about 5'5", 5'6". I basically think we can win the game in the midfield by being physically stronger than them and them not getting a grip of anything. So I would actually look to go keep Fabinho in. I think he was poor for probably the first half the other night, got into the game a little bit later, but generally, you know, since December, I think he's been excellent, one of Liverpool's best players, so I would stick with him. I would definitely put Henderson in and tell him to play that sort of advanced position again, probably not as high up as what he was doing against Southampton, but you know, he's not playing the holding role and he's free to basically just keep running and never stopping is what I would ask him to do. And I would play James Milner in midfield. I think between the two of them...
Moreno?
I am playing Alberto Moreno at left fullback. First of all,
get out, Dan.
To finish the midfield, I think it just gives us loads of intensity. I think they both showed the quality in the football as well the other night. I think we'll have a lot of possession if we have them on the pitch. I understand the idea around playing Keita and, you know, trying to play him into a bit more form now he's got the goal, but I just think if we're going to be giving the ball away, it's got to be Naby Keita if he's playing, and I'd rather we just add loads of it around their box, and they just got knackered after about half an hour really, because there's just too much movement and too much intensity. And I'm fine with Moreno at left back for this one, because I think he's not good. We all know he's not good, but he's also not as bad as what we think, because once he's been out for so long, you just remember the atrocious moments. And don't get me wrong, he's capable of dropping a fucking humongous bollock in this, but he could also just be all right, because I don't think he'll have an awful lot of defending to do. If it was away leg first, I'd 100% be saying just put Milner left back. But Liverpool are going to have most of the football. They're going to need a bit of pace to get him around the back. You know, we've seen in the last few games how a lot of our creativity isn't actually coming from the midfield. It's basically coming from full-backs being the spare man around the outside and balls getting put across the 6-yard box. I think I would like to maintain that, because what we'll end up with, if Milner's on the pitch on the left-hand side, is he's going to have to cut in on his right. And even, you know, regardless of what kind of ball that means he has to put in, you just lose a couple of seconds, because he has to cut in, he has to look up, he has to put the cross in. So Porto just get 1-2 seconds extra to set themselves. And for example, the goal we scored against Tottenham, the Firmino one, comes from Tottenham had 3 centre-halves on the pitch. He should have been able to stop him. But because his movement's so quick and because Robertson puts the ball in so quick, he can't deal with it. Yeah. So I'd like to maintain the sort of speed of thought and everything in attack. So I'd be happy to basically say, come on, lad, just be all right. Yeah. Just don't be a lunatic.
It hasn't started since January.
That's more my issue. I think that Dan's right. You know, I'm being a bit flippant before. You know, there has been games where he's come and he's done okay. And
Wolves' FA Cup was the last game.
And you think if Liverpool are going to have all the ball, or most of the ball, then you shouldn't see too many issues going back the other way. But I think your point there, the fact that he hasn't played for so long, would just think there'll be a rustiness to him a little bit. And he's one of them where, because he will be keen to impress, sometimes he does go a little bit, he loses his head a little bit, or he puts one of those tackles in, and it's purely because, you know, he's trying to impress people, he's trying to make a bit of a statement, if you like, and I just think quarter-final stage of the European Cup, it's time for calm heads. And I just think Milner at left-back, yes, it does blunt us a little bit going forward on the left-hand side, but I think the manager will just want him in there for the calmness. I think you may also see something at centre-half as well. I mean, obviously, Virgil has to play because he's obviously the greatest footballer to have played the game, so there's no doubt he plays. But I think the manager will be conscious that Matip's played loads of football recently, and he's not a footballer who's used to playing loads and loads of games without getting a knock or an injury. I think there has to be a time where he tries to get the likes of Dexy Lovren some minutes, or Joe Gomez. I'm not quite sure if Joe Gomez is ready for the start yet, to be fair, but Lovren's been on the bench quite a bit. So I would imagine the manager's tempted to put Lovren in just to get him some minutes, because all of a sudden, if Matip gets injured against Chelsea, he's going to need one of the other centre-halves. And if they've had absolutely no minutes at all, then that feels like a bit of a gamble. So I'm thinking, is there an opportunity to maybe put one of the other centre-halves in, give Matip a little bit of a break? And the fact that Gomez hasn't made the bench yet leads me to think it'll probably be Lovren.
Any shout down for Divock?
Not for this one, I don't think. But he was who was coming into my head there as you were talking about Moreno, and I think it's a good point about how he hasn't started since January and everything. But I mean, Divock Origi hadn't started for Liverpool for about 18 months, and we'd all written him off and thought, you know, the only extra forward option we've got is Sturridge, and if not Shaqiri, and Origi won't even be in a squad, and then suddenly he's scoring crucial goals in a title challenge. So I think that's, you know, testament to the work that the manager does with the ones that we think are basically finished with. But I don't think this one. I think the front three had one of their sort of better half hours towards the end the other night that they've had in probably the last month or so, and I don't think you want to break that up. I think the aim, it might be a difficult one to attain, but the aim will be to basically win this tie in this one, and then he takes Firmino out in Portugal and he drops Origi in, or maybe he does, you know, if we've got a decent enough advantage, maybe he also plays Sturridge as well and doesn't play Mane or something like that. But I think for this one, where it's really about getting a result, because if you don't get a result, if you end up with a 1-1 draw or something away, like, can suddenly become very, very difficult. I think he just wants to get this one over the line firstly, and then look to do whatever he can in the second one. Obviously, as Ian said before, he's not making 11 changes, he's not throwing Kiana Herver in at centre-back or anything like that, but something where he can go, you know what, I'm going to take two of the ones that have played loads of footy out here, and I'm going to drop two in who haven't played so much, but I'm going to need between now and the end, because he might look at Origi and think, right, he's not going to play Chelsea because I'm not going to start him in that game, but I might just need him for 20 minutes away at Cardiff if we're only 1-0 up, or if we're at 0-0 or something like that. So I'll get a minute in Portugal so that he can then have an influence off the bench at the weekend. And I think he'll be long-term planning it. He doesn't look at this game in isolation. He's basically looking at what it could be up to 10 that we've got left, I think, now if we get to the final as well. I think he goes, well, I've got a line-up in mind for the second leg of the semi if we get there and everyone's fit. And he does it like that, and obviously that can all change depending on results in the league and in the European Cup as well, but I think he's got an idea of what he wants to do, and I don't think that Origi in the lineup tomorrow night is a part of that. But it's brilliant to have him as someone who can come on either to try and help you win the game if you're not already winning it, or to stretch things, because I think we've seen him do that quite a lot when he's coming and played left wing especially, because Mane does a lot of sort of coming inside and playing as a number 8 sometimes, and you know, he's really good at doing that, but sometimes we need someone to come on and basically pin a full-back back and win you a few corners like he did against Tottenham and that sort of thing. So I think his versatility and his work rate will be useful to us across the tie, but I don't think it equates to a start for him tomorrow. Yeah, talk of a new contract possibly for Divi now as well, which is again testament to his attitude and application recently. Just wanted to end with something I spotted about Sadio Mane. I think you know, there's lots of talk about the obvious world-class players that we've got at Liverpool. Sometimes it doesn't quite feel that Sadio gets included in this little crowd, but so how about this? Mane has scored 13 goals in 19 in the Champions League. So this will be his 20th game in the Champions League if he starts, which you would expect he would. Only 5 players have scored more in their first 20 in the competition than Mane. Get on these names. Del Piero, 14. Van Nistelrooy, 16. Shevchenko, 14. Lippmann, 14. And Roberto Soldado, 16. So that's the kind of company that Sadio Mane is keeping in the Champions League. So maybe a cheeky flutter on him to get one against Porto tomorrow night. Let's hope we get through. As ever, the Anfield app will be there across social media. We'll be talking about the game. We'll be putting stuff out there. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook. Obviously, keep an eye on the YouTube channel. There'll be a post-match pint as ever. And there'll be loads of podcasts and writing too as well on the AnfieldApp.com. So that has been the preview show. Up the fucking Reds.
Hello, this is a little insert. It's John Gibbons with Craig Hannon, just to tell you a little bit about what we've got planned over the next month or so. The big news, Craig, is we're launching the new app. There's been demand for the app for a long time. You're excited. People should be excited too.
Definitely, yeah. I've been playing about with it for about the last couple of weeks, and I'm so excited about it. It'll have everything in one place, and that's what our subscribers and our listeners have asked for since I've started at the Anfield Wrap. It's when you're going to get an app, and you'll be able to get the videos, you'll be able to get all of our podcasts, you'll be able to get the writing in there as well. So yeah, really excited about it.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I've had a little play with it too, and it just, as Craig says, allows us to access everything we do in one place. So I know a few people have said, oh, I'd maybe go, like to see the writing a bit more, but I don't think to go into the website or whatever, and I understand that. So this will be everything in one place, and no matter what you want to do, listen to stuff, use stuff, it'll only ever be kind of 2 or 3 clicks away. So that is really exciting. A few people have asked as well that I know that you like to kind of listen to your podcast on your own podcast app or whatever, or watch the videos through the website. You'll still be able to do all of that. So however you currently consume what we do, you'll still be able to kind of do that. But the app will just make it easier. It'll make it, as I say, 2 or 3 clicks away, and it'll just be everything in one place, so more convenient for you guys.
You'll be able to Chromecast as well, which is an exciting one for me. Yeah, you'll be able to watch us on your TV, which I'm sure is a positive. Would you say it's a positive?
Huge news for Craig's mum. Also, as part of this, there will be a bit of a price change. So we've kept the same prices since we launched back in 2015, which is we launched Tour Play. We figured out the sky, to be honest with you, we went for £5 a month. We're changing that slightly just because, obviously, since then the company's changed a lot. We offer a lot more. We're producing a lot more content. We've invested a lot in technology and in people, employing people here in Liverpool. And so we're just making some changes to the pricing. So all the audio is going up to 7, or the video is going up to 7, or you can have everything for £10. So we think that's a good price, a fair price for kind of what we're doing now, Craig.
Definitely. I think the sheer amount of content that we create, both podcasts and videos, it's over 60 podcasts a month. It's at least 10 videos a week, and I know Talking Reds will remain free for anyone that watches that, but the likes of the post-match pint, the preview, the second look, the stats show, and there's a host of other ones that Neil's been telling me about that he's dead excited about as well, that'll be on there. So we really think it's worth it, and I think that it gives us the opportunity to push on and become better and create better video, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do every day, isn't it? It's about trying to become the best that fan media can possibly be. Exactly.
There's going to be lots more of these inserts, both on the video and the audio, so hopefully between all these we'll tell you the full story, so you know what to expect when we do make the changes in April. If you've got any questions in the meantime, kind of do give us a shout. But yeah, as Craig says, we're confident that the Anfield Wrap's going to continue to be the best place best place to get all your LFC content, and the best people of sharing the journey of supporting Liverpool. So we hope you come with us on this really exciting next stage.